My colleague Diabo Seto is standing by. Very good afternoon to you, Diabo. What are you seeing at the results centre about how far they are with vote counting, and just describe the atmosphere around you?
Hi, Nzinga. If I look at the leaderboard behind me, it looks like 60% of counting seems to have been completed, so there's still some way to go, but we've definitely made progress. The Results Operating Centre is abuzz right now, but one issue that I do want to talk about is the issue of social media and the use of social media during this time. The CSIR has been quite generous with its experts and letting us know, predictions and all of that, but they have not left the social media aspect of it. Just a short while ago, we were listening to Action SA's Herman Mashaba about the developments at that party. And what is interesting about that is that how they have grown social media-wise. I was just looking at their Twitter account. They boast about 51,500 followers. But to really thresh out what that means for a small and young political party such as this, I've asked Dr. Baloi from the CSIR to join me just to chat more about what their data suggests about, particularly Dr. Baloi mentions of Action SA. I noted that they were actually on my trends list, that they were trending right now. For a young party, they've done well social media-wise, haven't they?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the warm welcome. For a young party, as you say, they're actually competing with the top three parties in terms of their mentions on social media, both for their own party and for their leaders. One would expect that the more established parties would have been up there with the ANC, EFF and DA, but it's actually Action SA that has been up there in terms of being mentioned as a party, and also for their leader, Herman Mashaba.
Yeah, let's talk about the separation of the party account and the separation of the leader's account, because these are quite different. You see that sometimes the leader could have a lot of followers, but the party not so much followers. What has your analysis have found in terms of that, about where do they normally go with an individual or with the party itself?
What we have seen when we look at the trends, we saw that actually for all these four parties, the mention of the party and the leader is almost at an equal level. So, which means the leaders actually does influence the party, but then it all depends on whether it's a positive influence or a negative, because they could be taking away maybe the positivity for the party, or if the leaders viewed negatively by the public out there, they can actually hurt their party. So the mention of a party may not necessarily be a positive one. It could be also a negative mention in terms of sentiments that people have about that particular party.
Yeah.
Yes.
But whether it's a positive or negative mention, it still results in follows, which is what a lot of people are looking for. You are looking for that 51.5 or even 1 million followers. The appropriate use of things like hashtags. How important is this?
It is very important. And actually, even if you might have a huge amount of followers, but if somebody creates a hashtag that mentions your party in a negative way and somebody agrees with it, they'll pick on that particular hashtag, and they might leave the positive ones that you have created for yourself. So, and if your followers don't come on board to really talk about you and whatever, the negative ones can actually dominate. So it might show a huge amount of mentions, but it could be negative mentions.
Yeah.
So as you say, the proper use of the hashtags is quite important in following up and make sure that it is being talked about positively in terms of your party and your leader.
Yeah. As a country, social media-wise, Dr. Baloi, we are quite attuned with social media. We use it a lot. We express ourselves a lot through it. But however, this did not result in people voting. In fact, we saw a very low turnout. What could have happened there? Did people just prefer to sit on their couch and just talk about issues and their frustrations, but not necessarily want to make their mark?
I won't venture too much into that, in the sense that, as we said, the turnout is low, and it's been said that most of the young people actually haven't voted. But we know that in social media, the most active part of the population is the young people. So the other ones, they can decide to actually talk about you, but not go and vote for you, or talk about you negatively and still stay at home and actually not go and vote for you or for another party. So that turnout itself is not necessarily linked per se, because as we know, social media in South Africa, it's a small section of the bigger voting population, because most of our elderly people are not on social media.
Yes.
But it's a good indicator. But in the case of Action SA, there is actually, loose as it may be, a correlation between their activity on social media and them actually performing very well in especially the three big metros in Gauteng, because if we look at the locations, even though some of the tweets don't mention where they are actually tweeting from, for those of that actually include their location, you can see they're actually talking about they're coming from Alberton, from Germiston, coming from Johannesburg Center, from Pretoria. So you can actually see that the people who are talking about Action SA are they from the areas where Action SA is actually performing very well.
Yeah. Are there correlations that we can draw between younger parties, I'm referring here to an Action SA, to an EFF, and their use of social media and reliance of social media? Are there lessons that can be drawn for other parties that may be upcoming or people who already are in the political field? Can they draw lessons about how to milk, as it were, social media, particularly the platform Twitter?
Definitely, because as I've said, more established parties, some of them don't even make a presence. When you look for the trends, they don't even mention their leaders or even the parties themselves. But because the thing with social media, it's immediate response. If you do something, the people will tell you immediately whether they like what you're saying or not. So, which means it gives you a chance to really change your message if you need to change. If it's positive, you can reinforce it. So you don't have to wait to do some surveys later. You get the results immediately if you check your Twitter trends. So each party, I believe they have to really be active on social media, because that way you can get feedback from them. You don't have to wait for elections to know whether they like you or not. They tell you immediately that I'm not happy with this, and they even create their own trends, hashtags about you, and whether they like you or not. So you can know immediately that I'm being liked out there or not.
I want us to delve into a little bit about reputation and branding, and how that can be impacted negatively by the same social media that can make you a star. How does one as a political party engage in, as it were, safe lines?
Well, in terms of safe lines, obviously you need to be careful in how you use, as yourself, you use the hashtags. As we've seen in some case, another political leader, I won't mention who, they used the wrong hashtag promoting the opposition party. But you have to be careful there. But then, as I said, any person in the world can create a hashtag that speaks negatively about your party. So you just need to be aware of that and be vigilant, such that, because as you know, with Twitter, you can actually make complaints to really remove those negative hashtags about you if they are really disparaging on your brand. So you just need to be active and make sure that you are on top of the ball all the time. Don't let things fester, because otherwise that thing can grow. Because in some of the Twitter hashtags, some of them are really disparaging of particular parties, and it's still there. It's still growing, it's still becoming prominent.
Either way.
Yes.
Yeah, just lastly, before I let you go, I'm curious about your thoughts as the CSIR about other elements or things that have come up on platforms such as Twitter, like Spaces, right? We've seen a lot of individuals really beginning their conversations using the tool Spaces. What has been your observation in whether political parties were able to use Spaces to converse with their followers?
Okay, Spaces maybe
on Twitter, so it's a live feature on Twitter where you are able to speak. Yes.
Okay. I think for that, because of the fluid nature of especially these elections, maybe the last 2 days, I think any available avenue you can have on social media, parties, you have to really use it to really take advantage of the space they have. Because, as we said, especially when we follow the Twitter trends, as people were voting, we saw that these four parties were actually being mentioned quite a lot. If people were saying that they were not being mentioned at all, they could have done something about it to really push themselves out there and actually to push their message, that people become aware of what their manifestos are saying.
Dr. Baloi, thank you so much for your input. That was Dr. Jeffrey Baloi. He's the CSIR. He was talking to us about the social media sentiment analysis that they've done. We've partnered up as the SABC with the CSIR for them to give us expert analysis, like you've just heard with Dr. Baloi. And with that, I'll hand over to Nompu on the studio.
Thanks very much, Diabo, for that. Well, I'm joined